Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and another Energon Universe Discussion video. This time we've got the third issue of Skybound Transformers series to talk about. And just a quick note, in the interest of streamlining these videos a bit more, I'm removing the spoiler-free section so we can just get into the meat and potatoes quicker, meaning there will be spoilers throughout, so be aware. So yeah, after the relatively quiet second issue, I assumed the third chapter would turn the heat back up in terms of action, and I think it's safe to say that that definitely happened here, although not in the way that I was expecting, which, by the way, this whole image here with Optimus Prime taking on Soundwave in the tapes, yeah, it doesn't happen. So don't get excited about seeing Rumble because he does not make an appearance here. The preview for issue 3 said Optimus would be going toe-to-toe with Skywarp, which does happen, but I was expecting that fight to pick up at the power plant we saw in issue number 2, and that's really not the case. We actually don't go back to that area at all in this issue. Number 3 begins pretty much right where we left off at the end of issue number 2, with Carly trying to process the information that her dad has been killed. When she learns that it was a Cybertronian, she asks Sparkplug if it was the red and gray one that turns into a jet. And the fact that Carly has seen one of the Cybertronians prompts Sparky to ask about Spike and where he is. Concerns that are interrupted by Laserbeak crashing through the house and attacking the pair. Sparky attempts to fend off the avian Cybertronian to little effect, as the Decepticon cassette simply chomps the Elder Witwicky betwixt the jaws of his metal beak and tosses him across the room like a sack of trash. Turning his attention to Carly, Laserbeak advances on the girl threateningly, but Cliffjumper arrives just in the nick of time to administer a beatdown to the cassette, who he calls Laser Freak, which is the sort of line I'm honestly surprised never made it into the G1 cartoon, as it really sounds like the caliber of insult that would be right at home there among the likes of Blundercracker, Megabum, and Starcreep from the first season. Anyway, as thanks for saving Carly, Sparkplug shotguns Cliffjumper in the face, racking up even more property damage and sending him hurtling through yet another wall. Sparky then rushes Carly off in the stolen police cruiser and away from the scene of the attack. Back at the Ark, we learn the Decepticons still don't have what they need to repair Teletran 1. And interestingly enough, it's not all down to a lack of energon. Part of the problem is that the metals they've recovered so far on Earth aren't up to snuff. Raw materials with something referred to as advanced compound structure are needed to fully repair Teletran 1, and Soundwave points out they haven't yet found materials like that on Earth that meet the necessary criteria, starting to say what Megatron would do before Starscream slaps him, reiterating that speaking the former Decepticon leader's name is still forbidden in Starscream's new regime. Soundwave receives a transmission from Laserbeak about Cliffjumper, and Starscream commands Skywarp to deal with the Autobot, forcing the Seeker to stop lounging about and drinking from a little sippy straw, which is a nice little touch. Sparky and Carly arrive at the VFW bar we saw in the first issue, linking up with some well-armed reinforcements, including some familiar faces from issue number 1 among them, such as Danny the bartender and Jerry, the guy trying to convince Danny that he saw a giant red and white boxy jet from space. During this sequence, Sparkplug also mentions how communication networks are down, listing the internet as being one of the services disrupted, which makes me wonder if this series is set in the 90s since there's internet but no cell phones. But that could also be because I'm pretty sure Daniel Warren Johnson mentioned that he hated drawing cell phones in his director's commentary video for issue number 1. Anyway, I don't think it really matters that much, it's just something to make note of. But back to the story, Carly tries to explain that there are good guys and bad guys when it comes to the Cybertronians, but Sparky dismisses her claims, essentially saying it doesn't matter what side they're on or what their cause is, because when the shooting starts, people die. Words that he'll no doubt regret by the end of this issue. At that moment, Cliffjumper pokes his head into the bar, hoping to smooth things over. I'm assuming he followed them in vehicle form. Unfortunately, we don't see him transform. I say unfortunately because I'd like to know what his alt mode looks like, whether or not it's the Penny Racer alt mode from the G1 toy line and Sunbow cartoon, or something else altogether. Ever the cool-headed, rational thinker, Sparky opens fire again on Cliffjumper, this time with a machine gun. Making a dramatic entrance of his own, Skywarp muses how the humans are helping him out with his little Autobot problem, something that's completely lost on the men gathered here, mistaking the Decepticon for reinforcements on the side of Cliffjumper, and they begin firing on both of the Cybertronians. The humans' weapons have little to no effect on Skywarp, so Danny decides it's time for something with more of a punch to it, and he and Sparky secure a rocket launcher from the back of his truck, which hopefully he packed for this specific occasion, and he doesn't just keep it back there all the time. I guess you never know when you might be invaded by giant robots, though. Skywarp stands over Cliffjumper, telling him, "Prepare for the black, insect," which I love the way this panel looks, with the dramatically inked shadows and the purple-gray color work on the smoke in the background. It just looks really nice, in my opinion, and thanks to the sense of danger and mortality established in the previous issues, there is a bit more of a sense of tension in these fights. At least there was for me. With the beating Cliffjumper was taking, there was definitely a point that I was wondering if they might kill the little guy so quickly after bringing him online, but fortunately, that's not the case. To the great amusement of Skywarp, Carly tries to defend Cliff by getting between the Autobot and the Decepticon, and as Skywarp prepares to blast Carly, Optimus Prime and Spike arrive on the scene in the most dramatic fashion possible, I would say, with Optimus ramming straight into Skywarp's gut. Man, imagine how terrifying that action would be from Spike's perspective, sitting inside the seat of Prime's cab. Optimus lets Spike out and transforms, and the Decepticon Seeker and the Autobot Commander charge towards each other. There's some cool stuff that happens in this fight. We see Skywarp's teleportation abilities utilized for the first time in this continuity, and they're a little different than how they're typically portrayed, where his entire body would teleport. It's kind of like it was in the early years of the 05 IDW continuity, where Skywarp creates portals, but it's also a little different. Here, the ability seems to be more like something out of the video game Portal, where Skywarp can create two holes in space and send part of himself through. And in this instance, he uses portals to gain an edge, grabbing Prime's head from behind and throwing him down to the ground. In this fight, we also see Optimus slowly and dramatically power up his Energon axe, but it ends up being just a tease, which admittedly looks awesome in this panel where he's standing over Skywarp, but the big guy doesn't get a chance to use the axe at all during the fight, as Danny promptly fires a rocket at Prime's arm, staggering the Autobot Commander, the rocket launcher proving to be the one weapon in the militia's arsenal capable of doing damage to Cybertronians. The attack gives Skywarp an opening to damage that arm even further, and as Sparky yells at his companions to keep firing on both Cybertronians, Spike, who clearly has more heart than brains, tries to go to Optimus Prime's aid, only to unceremoniously catch a stray bullet and collapse to the ground. Realizing what's happened, Sparkplug yells for the group to stop shooting and runs towards where his son fell. And Optimus, having reached his breaking point with witnessing Spike's potentially fatal injury and Skywarp's callous attempts to finish the job right in front of him, makes a desperate play, tearing off his own arm and using the badly damaged appendage as a blunt weapon to beat Skywarp into submission. With Skywarp out of the way for the time being, Optimus reaches out for Spike as memories of the dead deer come back to the Autobot Commander. The compassion and regret he felt during issue 2 no doubt guiding him in his next actions. Sparky approaches, weapon drawn, shouting at the Autobot Commander to leave the boy be. Instead, Optimus transforms, inviting Sparkplug to join him, determined to somehow save Spike, concluding issue number 3. So yeah, this issue brought back a lot of the action that we saw in the first issue, but was mostly absent in the second. The action-packed moments are punctuated by not one, but 2 double splash pages, both featuring Optimus Prime, and they both look great. Johnson continues to make the character of Optimus Prime shine, and this meeting between Sparkplug and Prime will, I expect, soften Sparky's outlook on Cybertronians somewhat, at least as far as the Autobots go, I think anyway. We'll have to wait until January to know for sure and to find out what happens to Spike, and I'm really interested in seeing how that is going to play out specifically. Will it be some kind of a sci-fi thing, or will it be as simple as just taking Spike to a hospital? As long as it's not some kind of Autobot X situation, we should be good. I mean, I like some of the weird and wacky stuff in Transformers, but even I have my limits. I doubt they would do something like that though, especially so early in the run, but Autobot X was actually the first place my mind went after finishing this issue, so who knows? Hopefully not though. I wonder if the Matrix might have anything to do with what happens with Spike. It's also worth noting that the one issue Optimus doesn't mention the Matrix or isn't tripping over himself to open it, we actually kind of see it as he transforms at the end, with the center colored pink rather than its usual blue. At least I think that's supposed to be the Matrix, right? What do you think? I liked that Cliffjumper got some time to shine, and seeing him take on Laserbeak was definitely cool. I really dug that sequence, actually, with Laserbeak busting through the wall in what I think is a great looking panel, followed soon after by an equally cool panel of Cliffjumper's attack. He definitely had a good moment here, so savor it because he certainly peaked fairly early and pretty much just gets shot and thrown around for the rest of the issue after that. What are you going to do? Maybe he'll pull it together in issue 4. The art, coloring, and lettering continues to be excellent throughout. I feel like I've already brought up a lot of why I think the art in this book is great in previous videos, so there's maybe a little less to say on that front without repeating myself. That's one of the disadvantages to going issue by issue with these videos, I suppose, but everything in that department remains consistent and continues to operate at a high standard. The double splash of Optimus ramming Skywarp is easily the highlight of the issue for me. Skywarp's expression, the heavily inked shadows and subtle motion blur on Optimus, Carly and Cliffjumper shaded in the foreground. I just love the composition of this page and the way that it looks. I'm also a fan of this panel where Prime tackles Skywarp with the over-the-top usage of lettering and color, making the whole thing just extremely pleasing to the eye. And I have to give some props to the lettering during Skywarp's teleport moment, where the word teleport is somehow used as an onomatopoeia, which would be a humorous decision on its own, but the fact that the word is split into two to further enhance the action is really clever, I think. It shouldn't work, but it does, and it's fun. And that component of fun continues to be a big draw here with this series. So far, Skybound's run on Transformers has been fun and frenetic, but as we've already seen, it's not all fun and games. There's some real heart to the series, and I think we're going to continue to get more of that. The only thing missing so far, to me, is more world building on the Cybertronian side of things, but I'm going to reserve judgment on that until the end of the first arc to see what they're building towards here. And speaking of things that are missing, this issue is also the first in the series to not have a clearly defined body count. Don't get me wrong, I think people are still dying here. It's just not as obvious as it was in the past. It's unclear how many of the malicious Skywarp kills, but I feel pretty confident counting this guy on the receiving end of Skywarp's foot as most likely being a goner. I mean, there's no way he survived that, right? I think you could say the same for this other guy that got kicked who isn't just splattered on Skywarp's leg, as well as this dude that Skywarp tossed away like another sack of garbage. You could maybe make a case for others, but I think these are the clearest cases. And who knows, maybe they survived, as unlikely as it seems. For now, and until we learn otherwise, I'm going to add 3 to the body count totals. The cast remains small, and while I'm impatient to see some of the other characters that were teased, in addition to many more that weren't, I'm also really enjoying the almost Beast Wars or animated vibe of having a smaller cast of characters rather than dealing with a revolving door of never-ending fresh faces. And I'm sure that'll eventually change, and I'll be ready for it when it happens, but I'm just enjoying the ride for what it is now. I'm definitely still very curious to see how and when they're going to introduce RC, as she was teased in the lineup. But anyway, that's enough from me. What are your thoughts on issue number 3? Did you worry at all about Cliffjumper making it out of this one alive? I know I did for a second. I actually think that distracted me enough to make the moment where Spike is wounded that much more surprising. What do you think about how Skywarp's teleport ability was handled in this issue? What was your reaction to Optimus tearing off his own freaking arm and beating Skywarp with it? Let me know any thoughts you have in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, all that jazz. The next Energon Universe video will be on Duke number 1, and I'm hoping to be able to get that one out before 2023 comes to an end. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.